Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sustainapreneur Podcast, episode 21. Today, we'll be speaking with Rebecca Elderkin, creator of Miriam's Inspired Skincare, about how important ethical supply chain management is and how she's able to do it with her natural tallow products. She has beautiful-looking skin and wants to share it right here, so stick around. Welcome back to another episode of Sustainapreneur Podcast, where we are bridging the gap between business and sustainability. We want to educate and motivate sustainapreneurs by discussing important topics, debating different perspectives, and by showcasing those of you out there who are doing it right now. I'm your host, Nate Hansen, and we're glad to have you with us. So let's get started. Welcome, Rebecca. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Nate.
Absolutely. So Rebecca is the founder of Miriam's purified, grass-fed, tallow skincare products. That's a whole lot of natural.
Absolutely.
She holds degrees in history and poli-sci and has 4 years of management experience in the environmental field of conservation. She is a researcher on ways in which natural resources are used and managed to address the nutritional needs of people. She is a teacher, mentor, non-profiteer, writer, and entrepreneur. And we like to call you a sustainapreneur.
A sustainapreneur. I like that title.
Yeah. You got to start using it, though.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to be talking about one of the most elusive subjects in sustainable business, which is supply chain management.
Yeah.
Of the ethical kind. It's one of the most important things to consider in your business, but also one of the hardest to accomplish, unless you build it off of that, correct?
Certainly. It's a diligent and very intentional process that I think more than anything else has to do with relationships.
That's what business started out as, and we just lost that, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So let's go ahead and start off with an easier question than supply chain management. So what inspired you to come up with Miriam's?
Sure. So a few years ago, I was working on an urban farm in Missoula, Montana, and backstory is I have been suffering from a chronic skin condition for much of my adult life. I've had cystic acne, and I've been on and off medications that were topical as well as oral, and I've had negative side effects, some of them painful, and for years it's been what works, what doesn't work, what is just treating my body terribly in all other aspects. So when I moved to Missoula and started working on this farm, I went to see a dermatologist, and for maybe all of 5 minutes, I was in his office, and he looked at my skin and he said, some people have bad skin because of hormones, and some people have bad skin because of stress. And he kind of looks me up and down, and he's like, you just have bad skin. And even though perhaps I had told myself that before, hearing it from a professional made me a little bit indignant. So I thought to myself in that moment, I don't believe that. I don't think that that's true at this moment in time. And I thought to myself, it just doesn't have what it needs. But all of that to say, I went home pretty defeated. He offered me a medication that I, at this point in my life, am not interested in taking. It is a medication that I've heard a lot of stories about from friends about really, really harsh side effects. And I was, pretty defeated all in all. So when I got home, I was upset enough to be telling all of my roommates about what this dermatologist said, and just this struggle that has been eating away at me for years. If anybody has acne or another kind of skin condition that's just very apparent on your skin, you know how I feel or how I felt. And it was a roommate who said, my mom's friend, I'm pretty sure, swears by tallow. She uses it as a moisturizer, as a deodorant. Yeah, maybe try it. So it was pretty vague. He didn't tell me, it's going to help your acne at all. But at this point, I was ready to try anything, anything but to try this medication.
Almost like a moment of desperation. A doctor
Oh, yeah.
just told you that you have bad skin, you're always looking for something to try and get through that, but
Yeah.
that would be very defeating. But you're talking about the pharmaceutical track, the modern medicine track. You just decided to, anything will work, and up came this natural path remedy.
Yeah. Is there a safe option? Is there a safe natural alternative first that is also effective? And I think that we're kind of jaded because we, have this standard that is set by, the industrial complex, which is we want something, we want it now. And then when a natural product doesn't work right away, we're like, well, phooey on it. So I was like, okay, let's do this, And actually, I was working on a farm, so we happened to have tallow just on hand.
Now, what is tallow? Just for
So tallow is, it's best compared to lard. So it's an animal fat. It's from a ruminant animal. Ruminants have hooves. They are grazers. They ruminate, if you will, on grasses. So they have a vegetarian diet and significantly different from lard. That vegetarian diet impacts the composition of the tallow. So you're going to have a lot of vitamins and minerals. The fatty acids complex is going to be quite different from the lard from the pig, which has an omnivorous diet. So tallow can be from a cow. That's where I use that's where I get my suet and render my tallow from. We're in beef country in Montana. And tallow can also be from bison. So yeah, I put it on right away, and in the middle of December in Montana, your skin is desiccated from the wind and the cold, and you can't keep any moisture on your face.
Is that the worst time for
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think everyone struggles with it if you're biking around or spending any time outside in Montana, but yeah, the first thing I noticed was that my skin felt really moisturized, and the hydration felt retained even a day after I put it on. And as I continued to put it on, the first thing or second thing and third thing I realized was that my skin was less red and my skin wasn't as itchy. And I continued using it because I was listening to my body. It just felt good. And I was putting on the raw product.
Yeah.
I was just using tallow. I smelled like Thanksgiving for a little while there. I promise the product has evolved extensively since I've been using tallow myself and tinkering and developing products for the past few years.
I promise too. I actually smelled it when I saw her at the
Epic podcast.
Yeah, that's right. I saw her there. She had a table, she had a booth, and she had a product laid out. She explained to me what tallow was, and I was a little nervous about smelling. I smelled it. It smelled better than any candle I've ever smelled in any shop. I thought, my goodness, I could almost eat this stuff. I better not, though.
Don't eat the tallow.
Yeah. That's right on. Is that some kind of like a thing that's on there? Don't eat this. I know it smells so good.
Not to be consumed. Yep, it's on my website and plastered everywhere. So yeah, I continued using it, and my skin transformed itself. I like to say that the tallow, given its nutrition content, those vitamins and minerals, zinc, really high zinc content especially helped my acne and those people who use my product for acne. And then it's anti-inflammatory, it's antimicrobial, it's antifungal. So it's, addressing acne in a myriad of ways. I started hearing, for the first time ever, Rebecca, your skin looks so great. And that turned into, Rebecca, how are you keeping this to yourself?
Yeah.
So I started doing a lot of research. I was interested in why this product was working so well on my skin. And I really couldn't get away from how important that grass-fed component was. The grass-fed quality of tallow gives the tallow that vitamin, mineral, nutrient complex that makes the tallow as effective as it is. if the animals were fed a diet of largely grains, those grains are mainly sugar. They don't have those rich diversity of nutrients. Specifically, the fatty acids content is very different, and markedly the omega-3, omega-6 balance in grass-fed is much more even. Grain-fed tallow is going to have significantly less omega-3 fatty acids and way more omega-6 fatty acids. So an anti-inflammatory grass-fed tallow product becomes inflammatory if that tallow is grain-fed. So the difference is immense. And I was, at the time working on that urban farm, and I was reading about holistic management, rotational grazing, mob grazing, ranchers who call themselves grass farmers who are interested in building soil and enriching prairie diversity in Montana. We have half of our state is grasslands. So I became inspired to really incorporate that into the picture. And, I think that for all of the momentum that, organic is gaining with fresh produce, with fruits, with vegetables, where are you getting, these food sources from? Meat is somewhat lagging, the livestock is definitely lagging. So yeah, given the environmental aspect, but given the results that are so different, it's not just ethical and a matter of principle, but truly the integrity of the product and how effective it's going to be for our skin.
The meat industry is really an interesting industry. Mm-hmm. We take our cattle here in Montana that's grass-fed, grass-finished. So they take the cattle and they sell them off to places halfway across the country.
Oh, certainly.
And that's where they just fatten them up, get them to twice the size by loading them full of hormones and all kinds of other things.
Yeah, the finishing plant.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, the finishing plant. And they just feed them all kinds of grains and hormones. Eventually, when that gets to the dinner plate, you are what you eat, but you are what you eats.
Yes.
Right?
You are what you eat, and you are what it ate.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But we don't think about that in our skincare products. We don't think about that because a lot of this stuff, whether it be organic vegetables and fruit or grass-fed, grass-finished animals, it's going in our hair. It's going on our skin. It's going on our deodorants, in our laundry soap.
We are truly ingesting through our skin in addition. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's. I read that what we apply to our skin is in our bloodstream in a matter of, minutes. Yeah. It's direct. And
so really, a lot of people worry about what they're putting in their mouth because it's going inside of me. It can hurt me. But if it's on you, it can hurt you too.
Absolutely.
People may be wondering, if your name is Rebecca, why is the product called Miriam's?
That is such a good question, and I'm asked it all of the time, and when I'm not asked it, I'm called Miriam, which is okay.
I didn't make that mistake. I got it right.
So I mentioned a little bit earlier that when I was first using tallow on my skin, it felt so different right away when I put it on. It wasn't like any other moisturizer, and it wasn't your typical miracle product, like all of a sudden you have this, your skin just becomes super desiccated and dry, and then, a week later you wake up and your face looks, it wasn't like that. It felt nurturing and it felt nourishing. I mean, two go hand in hand. So when it started to dawn on me, maybe this should be something that I create, at this point I had so many people interested in buying the product from me anyway, and it was a way that I could continue making the product as well. I was looking for a name of this company, what I would start and what I would do and how I would set myself apart in natural skincare, in organic skincare. And, the one thing that I I knew for months of my searching for this name was that it's not precisely a balm, it's not a salve, it's not a cream, it's not a lotion. And
there's all differentiators in those, aren't there?
Yeah, they're all differentiators, and I'm not even sure how those are, kept separate from one another. But I didn't want to have any of those words in the name. I wanted the name to be equal to the product. And my friend was bringing up, Burt's Bees, for example. She said, I don't say I want my beeswax chapstick when I want my Burt's Bees chapstick. I say I want my Burt's Bees chapstick. And we know, hearing Burt's Bees, I want my bird, that it's beeswax chapstick that we want. So when I was really digesting that, I thought to myself, she might be onto something. And Miriam is my mother. And when I thought about this nourishing quality, the name of the product and the name of the product, spoken as the product is used, I thought, I want my Miriam's. And then it just stuck. So.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a cool story. I hope my mom doesn't listen to this, because she's going to be like, how come you don't have anything named Wanda?
Wanda, yes, that's wonderful.
I'll have to nickname it Wandy, because that's what my grandfather used to call it.
There
Wandy.
we go. We'll think of a product just for that name.
Yeah. I want my Wandy. All right, so we should probably get back a little bit to supply chain management. Why is it important to Miriam's and you, and how do you manage to do it?
Certainly. So I think that, I mentioned, I have personal relationships with the ranchers who I work with. I know from going to conferences with them, going to various farm visits with them, that they're in the ranching business for the sake of the health of the land, the people, and the animals themselves, and they're so passionate about what they do. The other day I was talking to a friend in town. She was advising me on a few different parts and pointers of the business, and she said, if you're not loving what you're doing, then why are you doing it? And it's obvious, but I think that it's an obvious point, but when you take it a little bit further to, the level of integrity of your business, we're not following a certain rule or standard because we have to. We are because we love it and because we believe in it. So those personal relationships with the ranchers I work with, knowing intimately how passionate they feel about what they do and the impact they can make through their profession is, I think, invaluable. And I understand as well from just other aspects of sourcing materials for my products, herbs, oils, that's not always possible. I mean, it's a lot to ask, especially when you don't have everything you need for your business, for your margins to be, kind of at an acceptable level. That's not, that's a gold standard. That's not always possible. But I think that if you, employ some due diligence and do your research and make sure you know exactly who you're working with and what their mission is, and be discerning of that in addition to, what is the lowest cost for, cost of goods sold and for my margins and bottom line. As a sustainable business, and I understand that you're on this mission to define that concept. There isn't a textbook definition of a sustainable business. So we're ultimately learning as much as we can and doing the best that we can to achieve what we believe in.
A lot of times that sustainable business, actually, let me start that over again. A lot of times, to be called a sustainable business, a lot of times people are on the sustainability side, not the business side. Mm-hmm. They think of it like it needs to be 100%. Mm-hmm. From the business side, a lot of times business people think sustainability, there's no money in it. Why would we want to do it? Mm-hmm. There's a melding there. And sustainable business really is a progressive model. And what I like to do is I like to go in and say, hey, let's check out this coal plant, right? How sustainable are you? And you do an assessment, some kind of good assessment where you look at it and go, you really can't put an exact percentage on it, like 10.75% sustainable or anything like that, but you can get it within a range. Mm-hmm. You can say, let's take that and let's take it a step up and go from roughly 15 up to 20%. Mm-hmm. To me, that's a sustainable business because they're progressively moving toward that model.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and so, but what I really love is when you have somebody with your background, someone who's so concerned. I like to think of myself as being somewhat sustainable. A lot of times I have to utilize some of the tools that we've created over time to be able to be efficient to move forward. Mm-hmm. But I see you biking around. You're doing it. You're living the sustainability life, right? The sustainable life. I'll edit that later. You are living the sustainable life. And there's no question in my mind that you take everything very serious mm-hmm. when it comes to doing supply chain management. Mm-hmm. So when you have a company like yours that starts out at like 65, 70, 90, 95% sustainable, those are the kinds of people that we need to be supporting, as well as those companies who are moving toward that.
Yeah. And I think that you're exactly right. It's that constant movement. It's always pushing the bar higher and not being content with the status quo. Mm. One of the really kind of interesting aspects of finding myself in the livestock industry indirectly, I'm tugging in the direction of the beauty and cosmetics, but I am an agricultural product, doubtlessly, and learning about what's the next step to be more sustainable in that constant motion towards improvement.
What would your next step be? I mean, it's pretty sustainable as is.
So my interest at this point is sourcing herbs from growers right here in Montana, because currently I'm not operating at an economy of scale large enough to be business worth a grower's time, or for a grower, because more growers have come up to me and said, what do you want? I'll grow it for you.
That's that relationship part.
Precisely, without a doubt. I'm just working inside of quantities that are too small for it to be worth the business on either side. So I'm working with an organic distributor over in Oregon. So, I mean, sure, it's Oregon. They're a great company. They have a wonderful history, and the founder is very dedicated to her trade, which is herbalism. That being said, their herbs are not local. They're not grown in the United States. And it's like calendula and yarrow and comfrey. So these herbs that are, amazing for skin are being harvested from other places around the world, and they grow right here in Montana. Mm. So when I would say 70% of the time I'm harvesting myself. I'm wildcrafting my own herbs, but if I run out, I'm ordering from that company that's sourced from Chile.
But you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
And when you consider other products out there are lots of different products that go, give me the cheapest thing that we can stuff into this product. You are absolutely not doing that. You are doing the best that you can with everything that you have.
Yeah.
And that's better than probably 90% of the products out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So most of the ingredients can be grown locally, or at least within the United States.
Without a doubt.
But as local as possible, really it should be the draw, right? Instead of shooting straight to China and saying, just give me all your stuff, and we'll blend it here. We'll make it for 15 cents and we'll sell it for $45.
Yeah.
Right? You look within your town. If you can't find it there, you look within your county, your state, your country, and you just find the best product for your customers and your business and your product that you can find as local as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I think that tallow is an interesting oil or material to use for that same topic of conversation within the cosmetic industry, because you hear, and you know, it's kind of the organic standard as well. If there are a certain number of ingredients in your product that are organic, you can say it's organic. And you see companies that promote their products as local, and they are using coconut or palm oil with a couple local herbs. And you know, tallow is a local oil that is harvested right here in Montana, sure, but the supply chain is way shorter, and that means that there's more certainty about where it's coming from. You know, palm oil and coconut oil, you know, you hear largely in academic circles the kinds of malpractices that are going on that are just way too far away for us to ever keep them on our radar. I mean, longer than a few minutes. Oh my goodness, this, you know, pop up on my LinkedIn just showed me what's going on in Indonesia, and then it's out of your mind again. Meanwhile, you know, palm oil is almost ubiquitous in cosmetic products and food products.
And coconut, for us, is not local.
It is not local, and palm oil is absolutely not local. It's a tropical growing tree.
And there does need to be standards. You know, sustainable business, although sustainability and environmentalism and, you know, social endeavors really have been around for, you know, a good long time. Mm-hmm. Sustainable business really is kind of a new concept, because you couldn't really have sustainable business in the past. Because when you consider somebody who wants to do what's right in business and they're not willing to give up on their scruples, mm-hmm. the person that is willing to, a lot of times can get a cheaper product on the shelf, and without an educated consumer that they have no idea that they're supporting a product that just killed a bunch of people in Bangladesh, and it's been shipped, and, you know, it's ruined their rivers, and it's ruined. I mean, they have no idea.
It's gone through 3 different companies already, and 5 different, you know, transportation, you know. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, it's like the blood diamond issue. People mm-hmm. go into a diamond store or a jewelry store, they put the diamond on, they go, that looks beautiful, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
They have no idea that diamond's red.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so that's with anything that you buy as a consumer. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest parts of sustainable business is educating the consumer. Because if they don't know what they need,
yes,
then they're going to keep buying the junk that's on the shelf, and people are going to keep producing it. It comes down to having that educated consumer. Mm-hmm. And so that is a lot of times what Sustainapreneur ends up trying to be, is both sides. Mm-hmm. We try to educate entrepreneurs in being more sustainable. We try to educate consumers in wanting more sustainable products.
Absolutely.
So that they meld together.
I think you're spot on. Consumers, you know, desire for a product really has all of the power for making large changes. You know, I was reading an article the other day in Forbes, and this has been momentum, and that's, you know, has been, you know, just a couple years now, but big, massive businesses like Kellogg and General Mills, they want to buy smaller businesses, little startups, because they're realizing that consumers want simple ingredients. They want fewer ingredients. So they're trying to race to keep up, and they're trying to change their business plan because they're realizing consumers want something different. So there's a lot of power in exactly what you're doing, and that education piece, I think, is invaluable.
Well, when it comes to supply chain management, a lot of these smaller companies are doing just that because they have sustainability in mind. And you know, when you're talking about conglomerates, these gigantic corporations that have made, you know, so much money, and they've made their processes so efficient, and now they're trying to shift their model. A lot of times in the sustainability world, there's that mentality that big business is bad,
Mm-hmm.
and that these big conglomerates are bad. And, there's definitely a lot of validity in that in terms of monopolization.
Sure.
You definitely don't want to have monopolization. But I always have the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the end result if everyone in America, if everyone in the world said, you know what, I want it to be good for my environment, and I want it to be good for my community and the society.
Mm-hmm. My health.
Right. All of these companies had to change to fit what the consumer wanted and needed.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a bunch of large corporations that, you and I build a company and we do it right and we do it good for environment and society, and this big company comes up and wants to buy it because they're trying to shift their model,
Mm-hmm.
I can't think that's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, the motivation behind someone having a sustainable company because of sustainability alone versus somebody going sustainability because it's a good marketing scheme,
Mm-hmm.
as long as they're doing it and the people can research the company and make sure that they're doing it right and they can fit the standard,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would care or be able to know what the motivation was.
Sure. Ultimately, the business is an organism that is reckoning with its own force of momentum. It has to continue moving forward in some capacity. They have to follow the consumers and what they want. So they're going to do what they have to do to survive. And I think that if their principle, if their own ethical standard is meet the demands of the consumer, all the more reason for the consumer to be educated and to find sustainability a worthwhile goal.
And if sustainability is now on the shelf as part of the product, you can sit there and you can look at now 10 different products and hopefully just pull out your fountain of knowledge that you have in your pocket, mm-hmm. and just go, this one's sustainable, it's meeting the standard, but this one's going above and beyond the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And they figured out an efficient way to do it, so they're only maybe $1 more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm willing to put money into that. Now they're all competing on a level that is sustainable. Mm-hmm. They're all competing on sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the piece about supply chain management is really important when it comes to this conversation as well, because, the person who is, 2 years into a startup and using simple ingredients because that's what they want, that's what all their friends want, and that's what they're seeing the need for in their own immediate communities, their access to those large, massive supply chains are going to be so limited by comparison. And while I agree that this momentum from big industry, big food is good, I think that we still have to be skeptical about those supply chains. Where are these, apples coming from, or where are the, for this, fruit bar, whatever it is, because the supply chain is what is the most hidden. And when it comes to skincare and using grass-fed tallow from, Montana ranchers, it kind of goes without saying, the question disappears. But for the company that's promoting a product that is local with the local herbs, but then is using, palm or another vegetable oil that's sourced from far away, we still have to be a little bit discerning and learn, what grows in my biome, what doesn't grow in my biome. Biome being, just a region with, a similar ecosystem. So I think that supply chain management is important because it's not what's apparent all of the time. But I think it's an important topic for any business that is interested in sustainability because it could ultimately cut down on the bottom line. Less transportation, less volatility means better business, smoother business. So, it's something that you might imagine bigger or businesses to be concerned about for their growth. But if the infrastructure already exists, if you're already used to business as usual this way, that's what you're going to continue doing.
The parent company of Sustainapreneur Podcast is Reindustries Consulting. One of the first things that we do is we come in and we do an assessment on a company, and they say, well, we don't call it sustainability, we call it impact strategy.
Impact strategy.
Yeah, because sustainability really is kind of going the way, the word is going the way of the green, right? Green and organic. Everything is kind of blending into this. All of a sudden we come up with the word.
A schema.
Yeah.
We're operating
green,
in
and then green gets so soiled.
Yeah.
Because people take advantage of it. And all of a sudden organic comes along, and companies have just soiled that name. And then sustainability, and then going through the timeline, it ends up becoming soiled, and people go, oh, sustainable product? Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now the next thing is impact strategy, and I'm hoping this one holds. I'm hoping this one is the honest... because what are we trying to do, really?
An impact strategy, absolutely.
Yeah, sustainability really is efficiency. And so when we first come in, the first part of the assessment is, are you run an efficient company? And we'll come in and we'll look at the lights and go, well, we're going to change these lights out so that you save money. And they say, well, I thought you were coming in trying to do some environmental stuff. That is environmental. Anything where you're wasting energy, you're wasting money, you're being less sustainable. We can come in and first thing we try to do is save people money. And then we move on to things that eventually you're going to have to start marketing these things, because they're not going to save you as much money, but it's all about having positive impact, finding the customers who care, marketing to them, letting them know that you're trying to do the right thing, and then having them support you by buying your product.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's the idea of the future of business. That will be the future of business. And you're right on track. And I mean, you wear your marketing billboard on your face every day. Like, I have skincare products that are natural and organic. Yeah. And if they want to ask, does it work? You don't have to say a word.
Yeah.
Your skin is beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. It is only... in the past few years I ever heard that before. So yeah, that's the point, is to get it out, get just the word out, get the product out, because more and more people are interested in what I was interested in, which was the safe option, something that will not be harmful, something that my body will, without my feeling guilty,
or feel like you don't know what you're putting on your body, but you just want to have good-looking skin, and a lot of times you're just willing to do unimaginable things.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that you have a natural product that can make you feel good, put the nutrients back in your skin, and do what it's supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. And it's currently, Nate, it is, I mentioned that I render the tallow down from suet, and suet is just, it's more often than not, it's a waste stream agricultural product. It's thrown away because it doesn't have a market. So I bring up McDonald's because McDonald's switching their French fries from being fried in tallow to whatever vegetable oil changed McDonald's for history, and it was really around that same time. This is like the late 80s. That there was a big saturated fat scare. So everyone was switching from tallow, and saturated fats were just completely demonized by the food industry, and so it was just thrown away. And since then it just hasn't had a consistent market. So the ranchers that I work with don't have a consistent market, but they love what they're doing. They love the animals they're working with. They love the land. They love the whole system that is, includes the sun and the grasses and the energy, and throwing that, which, it's up to 40 pounds of body mass from a single cow. Animal. Yeah, precisely. I mean, that's an incredible amount of embodied energy that is just tossed. So to throw this all away, and then for suet and tallow, grass-fed tallow, to be so beneficial for skin, it just seems criminal to be tossing so much of it.
One of the new scares that I've heard about is trans fats.
Trans fats, yeah, absolutely. Those are not natural fats. They are kind of hydrolyzed, if you will. So a monounsaturated fat, a polyunsaturated fat, these fats that are liquid at room temperature, or with refrigeration, they are made to be saturated. So it's the hydrolyzing is actually injecting those hydrogens into these fatty acid chains, creating more bonds and more structure. So something that was liquid is now solid. And our body doesn't know what to do with them. Our body tries to imitate, it looks like fat, from a molecular level. So our cells are just taking it on, and then it doesn't have any of the same utilitarian purposes that fat serves in our body. So it's almost useless mass that our body just stores and collects.
And grass-fed, grass-finished animals, there's an amino acid called conjugated linoleic acid, CLA.
Yep.
And I've read that there's 500% more in grass-fed, grass-finished animals. And that's actually a natural fat blocker, fat fighter, where if you eat an animal that has not been raised on grass and is fed just nothing but grains and hormones, then when you eat it, it's got fat, but it doesn't have the CLA to go with it to be able to cut that fat off.
Absolutely.
So, you have to have a balance of those things. And so when you get, you can eat a steak that's grass-fed, grass-finished, and not have to worry about gaining weight off of it because of all the positive nutrients, all the good nutrients necessary to be able to complete that balance.
Absolutely.
And that also needs to be on your skin if you're going to be using any kind of tallow product.
Without a doubt. And I think in the nutrition world, saturated fats still are retaining this reputation for causing cardiovascular disease and other chronic diseases. I think that there's more ambiguity at this point in some of the research I found, Dr. Bruce Ames, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. But grass-fed, grass-finished beef actually has less saturated fat additionally than your regular grain-fed animal. And in my processing, the melting point for my tallow is actually quite a bit lower than a regular grain-fed tallow melting point because it's less saturated. So on multiple levels, you have that omega-3, omega-6 balance, that CLA that's higher in the grass-fed, and then you have less saturated fats, and then you have the vitamins and minerals that come from a biodiverse diet of grasses. I was just at a grazing conference just this past month, and Dr. Fred Provenza, who studied livestock behaviors and nutrition, mentioned research that observed animals, livestock actually choosing and selecting specific grasses, different herbs from the prairie, what was available to them for the sake of meeting nutrition deficits. And he even went on to say that the animal is able to pick and choose what to eat at any given point of the day for when its nutrition content is the highest. So if the animal has the option to eat a nutritional diet, it's going to be way, way more effective than what we initially conceived, what we first thought. So it's trying to meet those nutritional needs. Yeah, I wish we all acted that way in the grocery store. We have so much available to us, but...
Yeah, well, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you guys want to check out Rebecca and see her product, go ahead and check her out. Where are you located online?
So I'm at www.miriamskincare.com. That's MiriamSkincare.com.
All right, terrific. Go ahead and go check it out. You won't be disappointed. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
That concludes our episode for today. As always, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, share, rate, and subscribe. And we'll see you all again next time on Sustainapreneur Podcast, where we are bridging the gap between business and sustainability.